Welcome back to Addicted to Recovery, the podcast bringing you the truth about addiction. My name's Christopher White. I am joined by my dear friend, co-host and fellow recovering addict, Max Thomas. How are you today, my
Chrissy
friend?
White, how we doing, man?
Good, mate. Really good.
Sun's out.
Sun is out.
Yeah,
I've got a T-shirt on and I was just outside with a T-shirt on, which is a fucking nice feeling, isn't
A
it?
little windy though, isn't it?
It is still a bit windy. But
No,
I'll take that.
beggars can't be choosers.
I'll take that, mate. It seems like spring might have finally sprung.
Yeah, we keep saying that though every week.
We do. What's it called? The spring of deception.
That's it, man.
You get like 2 days of nice weather and you think it's a spring. Anyway, we've got a nice guest today, mate.
Yeah,
Who we got in the studio?
we got Perry. Yeah, man, he's come down for us. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you, chaps. Good
Welcome,
to be here.
Perry. Good to have you here,
see
mate.
Loving the digs.
Yeah, decent,
You
isn't
know
it?
what I mean? Very nice.
Nice
what
little
you've got here.
space, isn't it?
I like it. I like it a lot.
You should have seen where we started, Perry.
Yeah.
It's like Harry Potter's little room under the stairs.
Yeah, it really was.
No.
How far we've come.
I know. Look at it. It's great.
Look, mate.
Thanks for inviting me. I really
No
appreciate
problem
it.
at all. Look, you've got a great story. I heard you sharing in a meeting last night, actually, and I was thinking, like, rubbing my hands together, like, oh, brilliant, he's on the podcast tomorrow. You know what I mean? So
nice.
I know you got a great story. I know you came in quite young, which is a different take that we've had from our other guests, which is going to be great for the listeners to hear. So basically, what we like to do is just tell us a bit about your story. We'll come in when we identify and relate to what you're saying, and yeah, mate, it's basically experience, strength, and hope, but a bit of a more elongated form.
Yeah.
So, mate, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, just on that note, just I suppose from aware of my age. I'm aware, I used to be a lot more back in the day aware of how young I was, and that now I've been in recovery for a bit of time. I'm over 10 years clean now in
Nice,
recovery.
congratulations.
And thank you very much. And I say that because I'm very proud of it, and also because of my age, it's like I gravitate to a lot of the men that come into to the meetings, because I think, no, let me get hold of you.
Yeah.
Because I know what you can do if you stick around this gear. Because I remember when I got in early doors.
How old were you when you got in?
I was 23. My first ever meeting, I was 15.
No
But
way.
when I was 23, when I got clean, and there was a good couple of months, boys, where I was like, am I too young for this?
Yeah.
Am I too young? Have I come in too early? Do you know what I mean?
What was the vibe? Was it an older crowd when you?
You know, my first meeting where I've gone off on my own accord, because my first meeting wasn't off my own accord, but the first meeting was when I went off my own accord. It was a young person's meeting in Brick Lane.
Right.
And I actually had a pal with me, one of my friends was 2 years clean at that time, and he was the same age as me.
Right.
So there was a little bit of like, oh, okay, like,
If he can do it, I can do it.
yeah, and it being in a young person's meeting,
Yeah.
I still feel that I was baby faced back then. I looked fucking.
Is there an age
16.
limit at
I
a
was
young
going to
person's
say, what's
meeting?
the age limit?
Well, I
Will I
always,
still get in? Or?
I always say to people, I say it's like, remember the terminology where they used to say it's an 18 to 30s holiday. It's
Yeah, that's
that,
long gone.
But it's recovery form. Do you know what I mean?
See, nowadays, I think it's just newcomers meetings that I see around. I don't see young people. Maybe in London it's still there, but
Yeah,
it's
different sort of fellowship in London. So many meetings. Isn't it?
It was, and I mean that is the only meeting I knew, which was a young person's meeting on Brick Lane on a Tuesday. I mean, if it's going to be anywhere, it's Brick Lane or Camden, right? Do you know what I mean? So, but that was for me there was a bit of a sort of a crossroads to it. Do you know what I mean? Or sort of a the one side of would be people going, "You're young," and the other side will people would be going, I wish I got it when I was your age.
Yeah. Can relate to that.
And in the end, I wouldn't say that was the decision-making process, but, in the end, that's what kind of ran with. I was like, well, like we was just talking before the podcast started, like, I ran with the idea that I can get a life beyond my wildest dreams, being in recovery.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because my biggest, evidently the biggest hang up for me at that time or prior to recovery was my using and my, my addictive personality and my addictive traits. And that sort of was, I don't know if it was naivety at that early stage or whether I was too young or whether it was just blind faith, but I got into the steps quick. I got involved.
That's such a gift, man.
When my sponsor said to me, read 4 pages a day, call me every single day, I said, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir.
Yeah.
Like, I just was like, okay.
Willing.
Fine. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't necessarily in our readings, we talk about jails, institutions and death. And I'll be honest, lads, I weren't much of a thief, do you know? But death was really apparent for me, like very apparent. There was enough hospital trips to tell me, like, that you're skating on thin ice here, boy. Yeah. And so when I did come in, because this was obviously all our last decisions, you know what I mean? This is my last chance to learn.
Yeah, of course.
I tried every other thing. So I sort of come in and it was the gift of desperation that we speak about. Do you know what I mean? How paradoxical that phrase is, gift of desperation. But it's so true. Like, I was so fucking desperate that I just done it. I was like, what else have I got to lose at this point?
We say all the time, you're beaten into a state of reasonableness.
Right? What else have I got to lose at this point? I've just got to fucking do it.
No, it sounds sick. I say it, I've said it before on multiple episodes. I couldn't be more grateful for having that gift of desperation, for Mrs. kicking me out and having that last use up, which took me to my knees. And because I genuinely believe if my family had done an intervention 2 weeks before, I might not be sitting here today, 5 years clean. So it's like I needed that to be in the gutter, to then have that gift of desperation, like you said, to not. I like the fact you said yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, sir, because if you ain't got that gift, I'd be questioning why you asked me to do that.
Well,
that sounds like a lot of meetings.
This is the thing now, because it's like now my sponsor says to me now, he says I remember I called him at 5 years clean, and I can't remember what the subject was on, but I was super inquisitive about this particular subject, and I was like really overanalyzing, really overthinking things, and like and he went where are we at the moment? We're clean here. I was like, 5 years, a couple of months. He went, I get it. I said, what would you mean? He went, you've got your brain back now, haven't you? I was like, what do you mean? He went, 5 years, get your brain back. 10 years, you start knowing how to use it. 15 years, you realise you don't need it.
I love that.
And and if I the reason I sort of make that point is because, I was questioning things he was suggesting.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
After 5 years.
After 5 years.
Whereas at the beginning you were like, yes.
I was like, I'm fucking desperate, mate.
Yeah.
At 5 years, I'm
not so desperate.
I'm comfortable, Chris. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, my belly's full. I'm all right. Like, do I? Like, I'm all right doing a meeting a week. I'll chat to you every now and then, kind of thing. So, so to literally, Max, to your point, like, I think if I didn't have that, what would have happened if I did overanalyze it when I overthink it? And I noticed that when I see new people come in, and maybe they're just a bit more intelligent than me, because I do see them start overthinking, over questioning, and I'm like, mate, don't fucking just crack on.
Yeah, I never asked why, Chris. I was just like you, mate. I was just like, right, what do I do next? What does that mean? Like, okay, make teas and coffees. Yep, I got that. It wasn't like, well, no, I'm a big city boy. I'm too good for that. It just wasn't there for me. It was. I'm so grateful for that, right?
Yeah. Well, funny enough, right? So I've got 2 different sides to the coin on that same thing. I've got a sponsor. He was 22 when he come in. He's 23 now. He's got about 6 months clean. He's nearly all the way through the steps. He's on step 12. He literally grabbed this thing, moved into a dry house, got busy with it, right? Done everything I asked of him. 90 and 90, step work every day. He's thriving. He's now back at home. He's out the dry house. He's back working for his dad. He's got his missus back in his life. Another kid, same drug, same age, same situation, came into a meeting a little while ago. I was his sponsor for 3 days. I asked him to do something and he was like, sounds a little bit much. He's back out the door. He just left the group chat. I can't get hold of him. Same age, same situation, same drug. One said, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full. The other one said 90 and 90 sounds like a little bit much. I think maybe I need a different sponsor. Out the door, right? And that's the difference of this stuff. One of them took it. The other one questioned it.
Not quite ready though, maybe.
Exactly that. Yeah. Exactly that.
Well,
and look, I pray to God he comes back, because there's nothing out there.
No, exactly that. And that was, sort of, going back even further. That was when I was 15. I came into a meeting.
Let's rewind the tape, shall we?
Let's rewind the tape.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, what brought you to the point of wanting to go to the meetings?
Well, so even take it a little step further, like sort of in hindsight, or sort of just life as it were, I'd always been around using or recovery. I'm from the East End. I'm from Walthamstow, and my mother was a using addict.
Right.
I didn't know that as a kid. Obviously, why would you? Do you know what I mean? But she was so loving. Do you know what I mean? This was a woman that just, and I really get it now in the sense of when I look back and she, formed part of, my step fours and my resentment list, and realise, amount of women we both know, or all of us know, that they step over their children no matter how much they love them. Do you know what I mean? And but she was in and out of recovery. And I was in reality a really sort of good idea to stay clean. Essentially, I came out of being, and so my mother went to the first sort of understanding of like, oh, this is a little like life's a little bit different. My mum went jail when I was 6.
Yep.
And I went to go and live with my uncle in Plaistow. We lived in a 1-bedroom council flat, 3 of us, me, him and my cousin. He was on the sofa, me and my cousin were in the bedroom. I loved it. Went to Leighton Orient on the weekend. You know what I mean? Went to see that.
Little adventure.
Brilliant. But it lasted a couple of weeks, and then I was in care homes.
Right.
And it was like, oh.
Yeah, not as
This is
like,
different.
Right, okay, like this is I'm different. I'm special, I'm different.
Yeah.
I'm not like the other kids at school. They've all got parents.
Yeah.
They've all got dads. I didn't know my dad. I remember going to nursery, and I remember first realisation of kids having dads, and I turned around to my mum after nursery and I went, oh, there was a couple of kids and they said they got a dad. Well, do we have one?
Yeah.
And she was like, no, we don't have one. And I was like, oh, all right, sweet. And just cracked on about my day, and then, got older, and then was like, no, we meant to have one.
Yeah.
A few weeks later.
Everyone else has got one.
No. Yeah. I know. I understand why they have one now. We should have one. And
so automatically though, from early age, like those feelings of feeling different, yeah?
Yeah, there was. And I think it was listen, I did, honestly, I came from a place whereby we didn't have a fuck all, but like there was an abundance of love.
Yeah.
I tell you, the abundance of love. And I was at my grandma's a lot, obviously in that sort of circumstance. If it weren't her, it was my mum. I was the apple of both of their eyes. So I had love, do you know what I mean? And it was only when I went in care, my mum's behind the door, I'm like, fuck, like we've really sort of took a wrong turn here, do you know? Yeah. And that was really when I started feeling a lot quite, again, isolated, sort of looking at it in hindsight, because I'm a young boy at this time. You don't know
at the time, do you?
But it was really when the sort of penny dropped of isolation, and I lived the majority of my sort of care life. I was living off a council estate called Priory Court in Walthamstow, and if anyone knows it, it's not a very nice estate, but you are where you are. Yep. I'm in the East End.
Don't know any different.
I don't know any different. But the environment, the people around me, what I gravitated towards is really sort of male role models were thieves, drug users.
Yeah.
Not very fucking good ones. I mean, this ain't a gangster story. It's just, these were just older men on the estate that wore Burberry cats.
Seeking out a father figure?
Ways and means, yeah?
Yeah, probably in hindsight. It was more just sort of, that a boy. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of what, and it was like from 16-year-olds when I was 10. It weren't like, my carers, what do I say? Because part of me is very still resentful towards it, if I'm honest with you. But the other part of me is, let go, let God kind of thing.
Yeah.
They done the best they could. That's that. So so in that, they done the best they could, but I had no fucking love. I had this sort of environment where I was around. And I also went to a school which was like sort of typically known as the best school within the borough. And it was my mum's wish that I went to this school.
Yep.
But just before I was sort of due to apply for this school, she passed away. She came out of prison. She went back on, tried to use as much as she used to, as we all know, and sort of she was out of jail for about 4 weeks and passed. So
sorry to hear that, mate.
thank you, boys. But then it was affirmed I'm in care. You know what I mean? It's affirmed that I'm around this situation. It's affirmed that this isn't a blip. This is life.
The hope of you, like, oh, my mum's going to be back soon.
Well, this was the whole thing.
Gone.
This was a respite. You're going to stay here while your mum's in jail. When she comes out, she'll have a council flat. You'll go and live there.
Yeah.
And
things will be all right.
She'll get better.
She'll get better and you'll crack on. Do you know what I mean? I'm not meant to be here for that long. You know, ta-da. And it was like, oh no, you're here for the foreseeable now. This is it. And funny, I heard one of your previous podcasts, Darren, on there, and Darren was talking about when he had his first sort of use up or whatnot. And I was thinking, God, he's fucking old. Because I was about 10 or 11 when I had like my first drink. And I remember I was at a Christmas party and they said, you can have one like Bacardi Breezer. Do you remember?
Yeah. Fucking loved them. Watermelon.
I had 6.
Yeah.
As a good addict would, do you know what I mean? And I was just like, oh, this feeling, man. This intoxication. And I started smoking weed like quite shortly after when I started secondary school. My point I was referring to about this secondary school, I was going to a really well-to-do school and I lived in the council estate in Walthamstow. So if you want to feel any more special and different.
We was just talking about this.
Yeah.
You know, the kids were wearing Prada shoes to school. I was barely getting Wallabies from Woolworths kind of turnout. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, it reaffirmed all the more. There was, because I don't think you can really pinpoint one moment as to why I was, why I am how I am, but there's a whole encompassing sort of life that formed around me that is sort of, I think a lot of our defects of character formed out from that childhood trauma and the way I sort of navigated or the way I sort of used defense mechanisms around that period of time has then sort of propelled me to be who I am.
Yeah.
And in a way, when I got into recovery, some of them defects of characters, they were survival tactics. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they were like
skills.
Thank you. Yeah, there were skills. So, shortly after, sort of finding the joys of Bacardi Breezers and WKDs, the blue ones, obviously.
Yeah.
Smoking weed around the back of the garages after school.
Yeah.
And it was all real sort of kind of innocent, I feel. Do you know, when I sort of look back at it, it was like, smoking a B&H Gold on break. Listen, it was you're smoking cigarettes at 11 years old, but it weren't, I don't know, the later years wasn't so, it was just sort of felt, oh, okay, I'm getting in with the cool kids.
Yeah, a little bit naughty,
Putting a mask
feeling
on,
part of.
I remember the same thing, Per. Like, I did exactly the same when I was young in senior school. I had the reverse experience, actually. So I didn't get an exam that I needed to get into a grammar school. I was from an affluent background, and then I ended up going to a decent comprehensive school. But I was that rich kid, I suppose, and so I had the reverse, and I had the same
feelings,
exactly the same feelings as you going on. That separation, because they already had their little cliques, and I just felt different. I was labelled as different. Do you know what I mean? But the complete reverse of your experience. So I'm with you on that, man.
Same feelings, though.
Yeah, but then what I did to combat that, I did have the fags in year 7 round the back of the school sheds with those kids, just to be different and put that mask on, just to try and be part of. That was, so it's funny, Chris. We hear it all the time, don't we? These stories, and it's very parallel and similarities that happen.
And it all comes down to the feelings, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The feelings are the same.
Yeah.
Like you just said, it's the same thing, complete opposite ends of the spectrum. You came out of it feeling the same.
Trying to be part of that, acceptance, please accept me.
Yeah.
It's like
needing to be liked.
Yeah. So you're around the back of the school sheds then?
Yeah, and just on that point, it's like we in the meeting we was in last night, and it was referencing, people coming from all different types of backgrounds, but it is in them core feelings. It's that sensitivity of our reactions to what I think a lot of times becomes what people and responsibilities were meant to have done, that emotional detachment sometimes, and it can be as severe as your mother passing away. It can be just your dad's not paying you attention because he's working.
Someone said something out of turn. Yeah,
it doesn't. The levels doesn't define like why you should be in recovery. I think everyone should have a program of sorts, you know. But
yeah, I do.
But yeah, no, it was sort of. By the time school wasn't for me, and I think there was, you know, part of it to be the cool kid. Part of it was I don't think at that time anyone sort of knew what to do. You know, there wasn't really many kids going around, you know, that had lost what I had lost, and so
you had a lot going on, mate.
So I don't think no one really knew how to handle it. There was also a lot of bit. I think I'd act out and you wouldn't get the same punishment as other people because obviously the situation may be what it is. I remember going from primary school to secondary school and one of the teachers turning around to me going, you know, when you get into secondary school, they're not going to know that you don't have a mum and dad. And I was like, I'm going to fucking make sure they do. So I could manipulate it and use it to my sort of...
Sorry, how old were you when your mum passed?
9.
So this is pre-secondary school?
Pre-secondary school.
Oh, Jesus, mate, it's really young.
So I left school probably, I think I was around sort of 13, 14 at that time. And I went straight into work. Went down to a print factory down in Black Horse Lane, down the industrial estates, you know what I mean? £100 a week, turn out. And I remember around that time, it was around that time, you know, everyone had the same times, right? You started going out on a Friday and Saturday night. I mean, you're trying to kiss a girl, you know, you're trying to, you know.
Great times.
Really great times. And, you know, the difference maker for me was I was working. I had a bit of money in my pocket.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was good. And we found this pub. Everyone found that one pub, didn't they, that let you in?
Served you, yeah.
Yeah. Found
Tracks, Romford.
Lulbrook, Walthamstow. So we found a pub and... honestly, there was no, you know, no one had put anything under my nose or anything. I just went to we should do gear. We should do it. It was like, I was a lad, innit? I was having a beer. I was having a pint. I was wearing my Ralph Lauren. You know, I was like, we should have a beer. We should have a bit of gear. And we called it on. I think I got a lousy rap. Nothing happened. But it just gave me the determination to I've got to find it now.
Yeah. Where's the good bit?
It's
I've
in
got
there
to
now,
find it. Yeah. And then eventually found it, and I found it in a big way. I found it really nicely. It was the best. The quickest way to sort of like put it into context was, you know, I was this meek mild little boy, really desperate to be liked. Got put a packet in his hand, gone into the toilet, and I came out and I was Superman.
Yeah.
I had a cape round me. I had an S on my chest, loads of muscles.
Yeah.
Every woman wanted to talk to me.
That's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
5'8", gone to 6'4",
Yeah.
and I could talk to anyone.
Funniest man in the room.
Literally,
yeah.
Literally,
Jugs.
in an instant. In an instant.
Yeah.
And I turned around and I remember that first time I went, I'm going to do this all the time.
Yeah.
Why would I not do this all the fucking time?
Yeah, it done something for you.
Literally.
Exactly the same as me. Like,
Literally.
for people that have got that angst and that sense of dis-ease that we've got, that all addicts have got, no wonder we kept using, because it gave us that stuff that we was missing. You know what I mean? Exactly like you just said. Like, I remember first time I got on it, I didn't get no shit rap. My pal was like you. He was the first one to go to work. We was all still in sixth form. So I was, 16, 17, and my mate was working on a building site in London with this South American bloke, and he got the fucking lively bit of like proper Bolivian for the first time I ever did it. I was flying, mate, flying. First bit, like, I don't think I ever had as good a bit as the first bit I ever did. You know what I mean? It was like, wow, I could not feel my teeth. Like, it was incredible. But it gave me all that stuff, like you said. I'm not sitting here trying to glorify drugs.
No, I know,
because it brought me to my knees.
Listen, we're laughing because we know that.
Because you identify,
It kept
right?
you up for 2 days, didn't it?
It did, mate. And it was just like, I was like talking to everyone at the same time. Like, I couldn't speak to people. I couldn't. And you gave me a bit of that, and it was like, wow, all of a sudden I could drink. That was the main one for me. My dad could drink like 10 pints at rugby, and I'd have 1 or 2 and I'd be falling over.
Yeah,
all of a sudden I could drink 10 pints. It was like a superpower. Like you said, Superman, mate.
Yeah.
Big S on my chest.
Well, I think you make a point there. It's like I used to, my drinking was the same as you. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't really sort of handle a beer on its own. But as soon as I had a bit of gear in me, like I can drink the whole pub drive.
Exactly.
And remember it.
That's why I latched onto it so hard at the beginning, because I couldn't drink.
Yeah. But from there, obviously, we're talking the good times, boys.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We're talking the good times. There's no worries. I'm making a bit of money.
Yeah.
I'm spending it on the weekend.
Yeah.
But no one's really cared. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I can still go TK Maxx, buy a Lacoste top for the Fridays, put a gram in my pocket, have a couple of beers. We're golden, And that sort of period sort of lasted quite a few years. And I look at it and I sort of reflect back on it. And I do sort of, it's not a glorification of it, but there was just it was just a desperation of sort of fitting in. There was a desperation of like, because even when I'm talking about, making light of the Ralphies and the Lacoste, it just weren't me. Do you know, it weren't me. And I really was trying to fit in, like going to the pubs, having a Stella, having a bit of gear. It's not, look at me. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't me, and it was another sort of way to fit in. It was another way to sort of feel good. And I say that and I sort of just popped into my head. Was it the fact that I just wanted the gear so much I would do anything to be around it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because that was
that
was a decisive thing for me. Like I loved the drug so fucking much. I was like, where is it? Oh, it's in Opera House in Tottenham. All right, cool. Like I'll go there. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to listen to that rowdy shit, but I'll be in there because the gear's there. Do you know what I mean? I was more when I sort of, when I refined my using and like in the later years, we all done it, was nightlight on a desk on my own. Because I just wanted that.
Completely identified.
I
was like, when are we going to go back to someone's house?
Yeah, exactly.
Please, I don't want to be out anymore.
Yeah.
I want a little safe group of people that I trust.
Yeah.
A load of gear on the table.
Yeah.
And just sit down and get on.
The night became irrelevant, didn't it, really? It was that after party that was that was the...
I used to go to warehouse because no one had houses yet. So it was like, we'll be in warehouse till 6 a.m. in Edmonton. Did you go?
No.
I went to warehouse 16 weeks in a row. I think we set the world record.
You didn't miss out, sorry.
You didn't miss out. Yeah. But I mean, like at the time, it was like, wow, what is this? But the only reason we did that is because we didn't have a house to go back to because we were fucking children. You know what I mean? Once people started getting flats and how I'm like, oh, just bypass all that, match of the day and get on it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's sort of jumping a bit forward. Considering my sort of living situations and what had happened, the social services had then became my guardian. So their requirements was that when I reach 18, they have to give me a council flat.
Okay.
And then I was off their books.
Right.
Basically.
Adult.
I was an adult.
At 18.
And they can, So
which we know is not the case.
I got given a council flat when I was 18 or 19, around about that age.
Yeah.
And it was back in Priory Court, just off Fully Lane, which for anyone that don't know is the Gypsy site. So I was between the Gypsy site and the boys shotting on Priory Court. Lovely little spot. Do you know what I mean? I'd recommend it to anyone
for an aspiring addict.
Yeah, definitely. And I was in this little block, and I just remember sort of moving in there, and I didn't have anything. I had a mattress and some camping furniture that my good old grandma had gave me, and I sort of put that in the living room. And I had a really great idea that I didn't need a bedroom, so I'd live in everything would be in the living room, and I'd use the bedroom as a grow room.
Right,
great idea.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Great idea for a using coke addict with paranoia and schizophrenia. So
fuck
at 18,
fucking hell.
Do you know what I mean? I thought it was a great idea, and I just remembered before all the grow, before all that, I remember just like sat there and I'm just like, sort of, what do I do? I've got this own space. And then my mate had called me and he was like, what are you up to? We're at such and such. And I was like, don't really fancy going there. He's like, yeah, no, it shuts in half hour anyway. I went, why don't you come here? And that was it. That was it. I was like, right, okay, I've got this space now.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it was like, this is the space that we all use.
That's what I was looking for.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the next stage. It was like at this time we're talking like, I don't know, 2008, something like that. I had just become a broker. I was a spanker. That was fast money. Yeah. I was at 17. I had a gift of the gab, Do you know what I mean? I was 17. I was doing $3,500 a month. You know, it's tidy money for a 17-year-old with a fucking good habit. Do you know what I mean? And I had this gaff.
Using at work?
It was actually like promoted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like in that environment, you know, they would have meetings on don't smoke weed, but do everything else because weed will fuck your head up. You'll be lazy. Yeah. If you want to do drugs in work, use coke because it will stimulate you and you can carry on the phone. That's a genuine quote from, you know, that's a spank shop. You know what I mean? They're fly-by-nights. But I started going Hackney. Shoreditch started happening. Brick Lane started happening. All these party drugs started coming out. Like these MDs, these ketamines, these fucking GHBs, these acids, these LSDs. It was like, oh, what's this? What's that? What's this? What's that? And I sort of moved into that sort of environment. Kind of, that sort of, in a way, sort of was kind of my, these kind of my peoples. This is what I feel. But the same thing happened though. The same thing would happen. I get into these spaces and it's all back to the same. Let's go back to mine. Let's take loads of drugs at mine. Let's get chaotic. Let's make sure that we're really hallucinating. Let's take so much that we're crippling with anxiety and that we want to die.
Yeah, just written off.
What are you saying, Perry? You know?
Yeah.
There was a amount of times where I'd taken so much that I'd turn around to myself in this like state of hallucination of like holding onto the chair thinking, I'd say this phrase to me, and it still doesn't make sense to me now, but I go, if I'm going to die now, at least I know I'm going to die. And I used to say that to myself so often because I thought I was about to die with the amount of fucking using I was taking. And it was to that extent now, we've gone past the actual using of the enjoyment. It's like, no, I need to get to oblivion really quickly. How quickly can I get to that point, you know? Oh, it feels good now. Let's take it up to there. Let's take it up to there.
There might be more on offer here. Let's see what it's about. Yeah.
And all the while when we're talking about this was sort of like the good times were going. Do you know what I mean? The good times were going. The sort of environment of people it was moody now. You
deteriorating.
It was good people had gone.
Yeah, I remember
a long gone by at this point.
Mine got to a stage, Perry, where I weren't using with my mates anymore.
Yeah,
I was using with randoms and waking up in my house was a party house when I was single. I had a penthouse gaff, so everyone was just wanted to come back to mine. And I remember I missed the whole of a summer. One year I missed the summer. I remember, and I got to the stage where I'd be using all weekends, and I'd be grateful when the sun went down. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I'd feel more comfortable and safe when it was dark. So on a summer's day on a Saturday, I'd just be counting down the hours until it got dark again. And I was thinking back to myself then when you were speaking, like just using with people that I didn't really know and I didn't trust, like my mates. And it got to that point towards the end where how the fuck have I got here? Do you know what I mean? It was really, the good days had gone by then.
Yeah.
And I was just using too much and knocking myself out, waking up with people staring at me that I didn't really know, and it was just a bit
uncomfortable.
Spooky. Do you know what I mean? It was,
I mean, at this stage as well, to add to that, you know, I sort of had recovery had sort of came into my life as well. At 15, I went to, like I mentioned earlier, I went to my first meeting, and that was off the back of, I don't know exactly what had happened, but I had used a bit too much, fainted, and woke up in Whipps Cross. Grandma's picked me up, you know, bawling her eyes out, and I'm just like, all right, I just had a bad bag. I'm all right, you know. And I go back to my foster parents' house. At this point, I'm living in Leighton, and as I walked in, you got my foster carer, my social worker, her social worker, some random bod. I don't even know who he was. He was just standing there for fun,
unofficial.
And all of a sudden, it's right. You've got two choices. I'm like, oh shit! Like I've walked into an intervention.
Yeah.
Oh my, no, I'm all right. I'm all. And it was right. You either go to rehab or you go to a meeting. I said, how long's rehab? They said 28 days. I said, how long's a meeting? They said an hour and a half. I said, I go to a meeting. And I went to this meeting. It was over in Wanstead at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Monday night.
The Monday night, in the old venue, not where it is now, but in the old venue. And because that's now my own group.
That's the first time I ever met you, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's really
great meeting.
But I went to that meeting, and the guy that's sharing, he was talking about, he was talking about living in a squat. The only worldly possession he had was a space heater, and he thought he was going to lose his arm through gangrene because he had been shooting up too much.
Yeah.
I'm sat there and I'm going, mate, I just had a bad back hit. Like, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
As I walked in and walked back out, and in that walking in and walking out, I've looked at the steps, have gone, no.
Yeah.
90 meetings in 90 days. I ain't got the fucking time.
Yeah.
Like your man earlier. I heard it all. I heard all the readings. I heard everything. And I was like, no.
Seed was planted.
That's the point. Seed was planted at that point. Because if I look back at it now, when I did get clean, it was, I can go to a meeting.
Yeah.
That was it. And in fact, what sort of really changed at that point, not a lot had changed actually, but the reality in my mind was like, I started realizing I don't use like anyone.
No.
I know. Like, I really don't. I really fucking don't. I'm the one still at 6 a.m. going, no. If we drive around to his house, he might pick up.
Yeah.
You know, like it was the reality had sort of sunk in that I didn't do drugs, or I couldn't. I had no. It wasn't that I didn't do drugs like anyone else. It was the fact that I had no way of saying. Basically, once I had one, I couldn't. That's it. It's gone.
I used to say to people in my house, why are you leaving after 2 days? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's like creaturing out in the corner.
Yeah.
Party's just getting going. Like,
it's not. It's over, mate.
It's not. It's well over. We got work in 2 hours. Like,
well, my thing, which was slightly different, I would go to sleep, take Valium, go sleep, but I'd always save a bit. So I knew that when I woke up, I had a bit there, and I'll go again.
So even with the Valium, I used to fuck with it because I'd love that high that you'd get from not falling asleep. It was just, you know what I mean? Like it was just, so I'm so with you, and I'm so, you know, it's just, it emphasises
using
all
one
the
to
more.
combat the other and manipulating all of it.
But I'm aware, like, we're sort of like where we are in this story, but to sort of come forward, I mean, there was so many sort of rock bottoms within this, do you know what I mean? Of like relationship failures and my sort of, you know, like I mentioned, like hospital trips and sort of real degradation of using. Like I'm a shit addict. That's why I'm in recovery. Like I'm not a really good drug addict who had like, I used a lot of drugs all at once, and that was never a fucking good idea. Like it was not a case of like, I was this big fucking real hard. I just used a lot of drugs all at once, and I'm 5'8". It really fucked me up. Do you know what I mean? And I was 7 stone at the time. Like it just fucked me up, and I just didn't know what other ways to move forward because I had real low self-esteem. I'd come from a position whereby there was no family, there was no people of responsibility had taken care of me, and it was me on my own. It really felt me on my own, and the only way I had some solace from any of that stuff, again, this is all hindsight, was by taking more drugs, and I got addicted and further into it. When I got to a point, I had this relationship with this really lovely girl, and this was like sort of one of my like way. This is always sort of my way of codependencies, right? One of my things. I used to go through this period whereby I know I had used too much, and I needed to like sort of because there was 3 years of trying to stop using before getting in recovery, right? You know. And one of the things was I'll find a woman that has that doesn't even smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That comes from that good girl that comes from this really well-to-do family, and like that'll end up patch me up, send me out back on my way. You know what I mean? A couple of week respite, and then I'm like, no, I'm all right now. Like I can go back to London. I'll be good. You know what I mean? Let me go back to Priory. Like I'm sweet. And I started dating this girl, and I remember I was sort of going through this period of just drinking, but blackout drinking. Do you know what I mean? And she had never used before, and she used with me, and I got her into using, and I was just like, oh, it's off. Like all bets are off. Like my missus,
that's not what we're supposed to be.
Uses with me, and we was no parties. Me and her on a Friday night. On the dining room table, we'd record ourselves whilst using. Like it was just like so like messed up, weird, like
fantasy.
It was just mad. Like I can't even understand why. You know, like we'd record ourselves and then sit back and watch it whilst using it. It was just very like, and then in that period of time, you know, I'm running to the front door, running to the back door to see if they were there. I don't know who they were, but like I'm sure they were there. You know, like, and it got to a stage we had this falling out. I had a load of people around for my house on this long weekend, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And my friend I told you about at the top of this podcast, who had sort of got clean before me, had came round, just had came round, just like, oh, I heard like you got people round. He was still about, and I was like, yeah. And I sort of looked at him, and he was like me when I got him when we was using. He was slim boy, you know, not much taller than me, so very skinny. And he come around at this stage. He'd been going to the gym, protein shakes, spirituality. Look, yeah, like Chris. Chris got bigger arms than him, but and I was just like, and the stature of him and the glow of him, I was just like, oh my God. And I just, on a whim, I just went, I'm gonna go to meet him. After 3 days, like my jaw swinging left to right,
attraction.
Like, I don't know what it was, Chris, because honestly, it was just in that moment. It wasn't much of a lead up. Like there was a lead up, obviously, but there wasn't like in that moment. I saw him. I just went, I'm gonna go to a meeting,
and he sort of in this, yeah.
He sort of patted my head and went, yeah, all right, mate. Like, let's see how you feel when you're sober, kind of thing.
How clean is he now? 2 years, this guy.
Unfortunately, he was the one I took to the meeting last night.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
No way.
So it's, but you know,
comes full circle, right?
Full circle.
But at the time, he was 2 years clean.
He was 2 years at that time. Okay. Yeah. And I remember I chucked everyone out. I chucked everyone out at that stage, and I had last bit of rap. I had half a can of Kronenberg left, and I poured it down the sink, and I threw the wrap in the toilet or whatever. I didn't. I was like, no.
Yeah.
And I went to bed that night. I say I went to bed, you know what I mean? Like I stayed up for about 4 hours trying to get into sleep.
Yeah.
And then I woke up that morning, you know, dread, come down, awful. And then this glint of hope just shone through, went, remember, you've given up. And I went to my first, this newcomers meeting I was referring to the next day. Like I stuck to my word. I was like, I am giving up. I'm doing this. And I went to this newcomers meeting. And as I walked in there, you had the steps, you had the traditions, sharing the same readings, talking about 90 meetings in 90 days. It was all the same stuff that I'd heard 7 years or 8 years prior.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, boys, like it was just a warmth of like, they're doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
It must work.
Yeah.
Oh, goosebumps.
And I got a real sort of sense of like, this might actually do it, you know.
This is the help I need, yeah.
They're still doing the same stuff. This stuff might actually work. And we talk about perception and talking about, you know, when I sort of went in and went, no, I haven't got time for 90. Yeah. See you later.
Yeah.
I saw the steps. I went, if I have to,
yeah.
I'm in. If I have to, then
complete switch.
And you know what was the simplest of wording? Someone went, it suggested we do 90 meetings in 90 days. If 90 meetings sounds a lot, just do one a day and the 90 will follow. And I went, I can do that.
Yeah.
You can do one a day.
I could do one a day.
Yeah.
And I said, and it was just that. Yeah. And I just, and it was that point I was just like, I'm in this. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I picked up my white keyring that night. I can't remember the share at all, but I picked up my white keyring that night. And I was like, no, I'm on this journey now. Yeah. Like this is
and you stayed clean from then?
9th of February 2014 that was.
Fucking madness. So that half a packet and that half a Kronenberg you poured down the sink, that was it?
That was it.
Mate, it's brilliant.
I love the glimmer of hope that you mentioned, that little moment where we can pause. Greg was on a few weeks back and he mentioned it as well. And thank God I had one of those moments, Perry, when I'd been out missing for a couple of days and I was around my brother's house and there'd been a search party out for me and eventually found. And I remember I had that moment where I sat in front of a mirror. I went into his ensuite, I think, and sat in front of the mirror. And I was just like, how the fuck have you got here? How, like the party days were so far away from me. And then I'd like just destroyed was destroying my family, my kids, and all that trust and letting people down. And then I was here, wanting to take forward 10 years, sat in front of a mirror, bawling my eyes out. My old man in the other room, does not knowing what was going on. Do you know what I mean? Oblivious to the whole situation. And yeah, but I got that. The what I'm trying to say is I got that little bit of that pause, that right. And then I went to a meeting that night, and I've not looked back since that day. So, yeah, they're invaluable. I think for the listener, if you get that glimmer of hope or that little pause where you actually come around and just fucking take it, right, and just run with it. That's what I did.
Yeah, mate. Like you said, last house on the block, last door that's open, last Charles Saloon, and it's like for you to be at that point at 23,
yeah.
It's like, how much longer could you have gone for?
But this is it. Like, I think when, you know, we sort of at the top of this pod, I was sort of referring to, you know, that early stage where I was like, you know, how long am I too young, and this, that, and the other, and you know, I started off really young.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I did start off really young, and it got intense, like from the get go. Like it was, and mate. Too young, too old, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
I'm in recovery. Do you know what I mean? I'm having a go. I'm getting a bit of a solution around me. And, you know, it's in reference to what I said earlier about, you know, when people sort of come into recovery, and I do believe it. Someone shared it the other day. It's not I'm not going to claim this quote. You know, people come in and they're at different levels of damage. Do you know what I mean? Like I came in, I was a young man. I hadn't had a wife, hadn't had a kid. Do you know what I mean? There was a level of damage that had been done.
It was enough.
It was enough. It was internal. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't, I was on a park bench. Do you know what I mean? I was still grafting at that time, you know. And that's what another thing that kind of kept me out, because I was in a suit in Monday to Friday.
So
do you know what I mean? And I wasn't on a park bench drinking a can of K. So it was sort of like, I'm not an addict.
Yeah, I'm a what?
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember when I went to that first meeting at 15, and despite the fact that I sort of mentioned that point about the share, the guy sat to my right was, you know, wearing, you know, shirt and jumper with glasses. I was like, he's not an addict.
No.
No, he can't be.
Look at him.
Yeah.
Get back to watching Corey, mate. What are you doing here? You know, like, but.
So what did you do when you came in?
When I came in, I'd done 90 meetings in 90 days straight away. Yeah. And I got a sponsor very quickly.
Yeah.
I did get a sponsor very quickly, but he didn't last long. The guy I really liked, he actually said no when I first asked him, and it fucking cut me.
Yeah,
it cut
we
me.
spoke about that before.
Oh my God. It felt like asking a bird out.
Yeah.
And
getting rejected.
Exactly.
That's the worst feeling ever.
And I had also just sort of made it up to be this thing. So it was like texting him, asking for a coffee. Why don't you come to a meeting? We'll go to the meeting together. We'll go for a coffee after. Like that was on a Tuesday. The meeting's on a Saturday. So I'm thinking about it the whole time, you know. And then when I finally ask him, he's like, I've got about 7 sponsees. Like, I can't really take you on. And I'm like,
okay, valid reason then.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's not. I'm joking. So you're right.
I'm in that position now. I've got too many sponsees. If anyone asks me, I have to say no.
Yeah, because it comes to a point we have to give time to our sponsees. And,
yeah,
I mean,
and that's my point. I'm like, I can't give you the time you deserve.
I also look at it. Right, I've got about 5 sponsees at the moment, and I'm very close. I get emotionally invested, and I like to. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that actually brings out the best in the both of us. It brings out that sort of trust.
Definitely.
You don't have to even question whether or not you need to share this shit with me, because we've got this emotional bond. You're my brother, I'm your brother. And, you know, all these people that have asked me, it's come at a point of like, I can feel like we've built up this friendship, and then we've got to a point where it's like, actually, no, I really want to like work with you, Perry, or no, I feel like I can add value to you.
Yeah.
So when people like might just send me a text message and go, oh, fancy being my sponsor, I'm like,
it's not quite the same.
Put effort in, mate.
Yeah.
Put some effort into it. I put effort into it, like, and I would expect the same. But I had a sponsor for about all of 60 days, and really nice guy. I know him really well now. He's still one of us, and I think you both know him as well. Lovely guy. And then it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working, and I sort of said, look, it's not working. And then the guy who I originally wanted, I found out he had lost a couple of sponsees.
Right.
So I was like, glutton for punishment. I'm going to ask him again.
Yeah.
And I did. I asked him again, and he said, yes, I'll take you through the work. He said, but I want you to read the big book, 4 pages a day, and call me every day. So my early stages in answer to the question was like, I got straight into it. I got really plugged into it very quickly. And I think I look back at it, and I just think I was fucking petrified, actually, because I just felt like I felt really, I had got to this point, and especially probably my last year of my using, like, I had, how do I say it? I felt I had somewhat of a resistance to a degree. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could manage things to a degree.
Yep.
And in my last year of using, it was like it had gone. Yeah. I had no management, no resistance at all. And I was really petrified at that. Like, I was like, oh, this is, and like I say, I just thought I was going to die. I actually thought I would end up killing myself.
I say that I've just fully surrendered to the drugs.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Perfectly put. Yeah. Really were perfectly put. And that's, I think, my last couple of years was. And, when people turn around, especially in the early stages, and they turn around and go, the drugs stopped working for me, I was just like, you just got a bad packet, mate. Like, I used to get like really good gear.
Yeah,
what
you need to do more.
About? But it was more the fact of like the actual relief was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was
using to get to zero.
Yeah. So well put. Like, honestly, when I was first using, it was to get to 100, and now it got to a point where it was a fucking cue ball just to get to 0. Do you know what I mean? And it was, but yeah, in that early stages, I sort of really plugged into it, and I just followed the lead. Do you know what I mean? I remember the one. It's probably I think there was 2 times in my recovery where I felt that I was close to a relapse. And one time I was about 27 days clean, and I was coming out of Friday night Mare Street meeting, and I just remember sat in that meeting and just had this thought of, oh, you got money. Oh, like, because I didn't have money before. Do you know what I mean? I hadn't used for 27 days, so I got money. And then entwined with that thought, I smelt Stella. And I love Stella. I was like, that was my beer. And I was like, oh, I can smell Stella. I've got money. And I came at that meeting, and I was still with this sort of girl I was referring to earlier, and I sort of cried, and I said, she was really supportive of the meeting. And I just had in my head, I was like, if I can turn her, like, I'll be good. Do you know what I mean? Called her up and I said, oh, I've just come out of a meeting. She's like, oh, you're on your way home? I was like, yeah. She's like, how was the meeting? I was like, oh, shit, I want to use. And then she went, well, you're not going to, though. I was like, no, I am. I think it's all right. I think it's fine. She's like, no, you ain't. And I was like, I'll talk to you when I get home. Put the phone down. I was like, I can work on her. I was driving from Mare Street to Wanstead. I was like 15-minute drive. I was like, when I get there, I'll work on her. So I got to my flat, and I remember, and I was like, no, I'm going to use. And she's like, you've done so well. Like, long story short, got to a point where she went, well, if you're going to buy it, I'm obviously going to use it. I was like, got you, done. I used to have the guy saved under my phone as Dan Coca-Cola. I hadn't deleted his number, so I was like, that literally got Dan Coca-Cola there, ready to press the green button. And I was like, better judgment kept getting in the way. And then I called a fellow in the rooms. And to be honest, I don't know why I called him, because I didn't really know him that well. I called him up and he said, listen, I feel like I'm going to use, like, what should I do? And the guy really didn't have anything for me. He went, well, if you use, it's like you can come back. I was like,
fucking hell.
I was like, fucking hell, mate. Put the phone down on him. And then I called my pal Ryan, who you met last night. And I said, right, I feel like I'm going to use. He went, don't you fucking dare.
Yeah.
Don't you fucking dare. Where are you? Where are you now? I was like, oh, I'm sat in my car. He went, don't you fucking move. Don't you move. Write me a gratitude list now, as we're speaking. Go on, do it. I started writing a gratitude list. Long story short, he stayed on the phone for me for 2 hours. I was like, mate, I need to go to sleep.
Yeah, talked you off the ledge.
Literally talked me off the ledge. And I remember that next day I woke up and I went to the Shoreditch meeting at 10 a.m. Yeah. And it was like it had all changed. It was like, oh, I'm on this side now. Like, the relief had sort of washed over me. And I sort of look back on it, and as I'm sharing that, I'm sort of thinking, when he had done that for me, he was so emotionally invested in me Like, that's why, like, with my sponsees and stuff, my sponsee called me and said, I'm like, don't you fucking dare. Like, where are you? I'm coming to pick you up now. You know, it's that emotional investment.
There's some things we learn along the way that we can then use when people need us. You know what I mean? Well done for making that phone call. You know what I mean? And making a call, getting an answer that was like, oh, fucking hell, all right, I can use then. But you made another phone call. Yeah. Right? So something's there, something's at play. I relapsed at 100 days. So when I first met you, 2018 is when I first come around, I got 100 days clean and I picked up, right? I made the phone call after I'd spoke to the dealer, right? You made the phone call first. And that's the difference. Yeah, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I remember I picked up and I fucking used, and then I called my sponsor and I was like, I've just used. And he was like, fuck, you know what I mean? And it took me 2 years to come back, pal. So, you know, like that guy said, oh, you can come back. I might not have made it back.
When?
Yeah. I might not have made it back. Yeah, I did, but it took 2 years, literally to the day. My clean date's the same as it was in 2018, the same day, 2 years later, 2020.
Yeah, I mean, for me at that point, and, you know, there was a lot of work to be done. There was so much work to be done, but it was such a relief that I had sort of given up at the first hurdle, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I was like, oh, and it actually felt, albeit I was at 28 days at the time, it felt like, oh, I'm going to get to 90 now. You know, like I've got over the hard bit.
But we talk about higher power moments, Perrin. Like your mate coming to your rescue that night, for me, that's the power great in ourselves, isn't it? And
totally.
On your own, you're going to use. With him, you ain't using. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and the higher power, even in a way, working through me to make sure that I called him.
Exactly.
And I called a second person, even after, as you mentioned, Chris, being given the green light to have a use up.
Yeah.
And I remember that sort of early stages for me it was a lot of pink cloud moments, and I was very lucky. And I look back at it, and it's luck, and obviously, you know, you make your own luck as well along that way. But because I think of my age, I was in work. There was a lot of quick wins, a lot of quick positivities, and a lot of quick reasons to stay on the course. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like my debts got paid off quite quickly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Waking up on a Saturday early felt really nice.
Yeah.
You know, like actually being there with people, like being there with friends, and actually having money to spend on things.
You saw your life change quickly.
Very quickly. I started doing really well.
Results.
I started doing really well at work.
Yeah.
I started going to the gym. I started getting a little bit bigger. I started looking a little bit better. I started, oh, you look good today, Perry. Oh, thank you. You know, there was a few wins, and along that I was regimented in my recovery. I'd done my 90 and 90, and after I'd done my 90 and 90, I think I was doing 3-4 meetings a week. I'd taken on commitments.
I was going to say service,
straight away. I still have 2 commitments today.
Same.
Do you know what I mean? 10 years clean, I still make sure I have 2 commitments a day because it keeps my bum on that chair.
I've recently changed meetings. I normally did a Monday on a Basildon, and I live in Leon C, so it's I've changed the Leon C meeting. I went there for the first time last week, got service straight away because I know that I need service to keep me in the middle of the boat. I've always had service, so I ain't going to take that risk to change anything.
I don't. And I know now with my recovery, you know, I still have, like, you know, bouts of anxiety, you know, self-esteem and stuff.
Yeah.
After doing it for so long, there's some things I understand, and I know for me the continuity, seeing the same faces, going to same meeting where I can just share where I'm at and have, like, unfiltered, that works for me. People could like to go to different meetings, different weeks. This doesn't really work for me. I need continuity. I need the meetings that
accountability
I go to.
as well. People know that you're supposed to be there, and if you're not there, you get a phone call. Where are you, mate?
I did it this morning. There was someone in that meeting last night who I didn't hear share, and I called him up today. I said, "Oh, why didn't you share last night?" All of a sudden, we were on this tangent of what's been going on for these last couple of weeks and why I didn't share. And it was like,
that's what it's about.
It's what it's about. So I sort of look at back now, and I sort of think about my recovery quite sort of in chunks of years as well. So it's like that sort of first couple of year period. I think a lot of that was it was very much engaging in the program. Not to say I'm not engaging in the program, but that was like my. I
was going to ask you this. So obviously we've got a lot of listeners that may be still using or early doors, and this is what we're trying to sort of trying to portray what is it you did in them early years that kept you coming back?
I think there's a whole manner of things, and I have this a lot. When we're dealing with like early doors sponsees and early doors people, and there's this, what do you do? What's the secret? And I honestly think, listen, all the suggestions in recovery, you do all them, that's a given. That's what we do. You know, if you want to be in recovery, you have to do all the suggestions. There isn't you don't pick one or two. You have to do all the suggestions. You do all the suggestions, and it also is some fucking willpower in there that's needed. Some white knuckling to sit there and go, I ain't going to fucking do this.
Yeah, early doors. Hold on.
Yeah. Early fucking doors. You've got to hold on, and you've got to go against the grain of what your brain is telling you or what your will is wanting you to go and do. Because you know that feeling where it's like there's just an itch in your body. It's like, I've got to go and do it. I've got to go and do it. You've got to fight against that a couple of times.
I used to vibrate, Perry.
Do you know what I mean with that? You know what I mean with that feeling? And it's like in my early doors, like it'll get to a point, Chris, where it's like, I'm 6 months clean, and that feeling comes out. It's like, oh, all right, cool. Do you know what I mean? I've got to sit with this. Yeah. Like I know I have to sit with it. Yeah. Whereas the first couple of times,
it gets less and less, right?
And the first couple of times, like you're like, oh my god, I'm going to pick up a packet. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I better. No, you got there's. I think the first couple of years is the biggest amount of graft that's required. I used to sort of try and I remember like when I was like sort of 5-6 years and sponsoring people and trying to sort of paper over it. I'm like, no. Now you've got to face the facts. You've got to put in some fucking work right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, when I was in recovery, and the people turn around and, when they're early doors and go, I don't have the time. Mate, I had a job. I used to go to the gym and I used to do a meeting every single fucking day. Right? If you want this bad enough, you have to do all this stuff. Yeah. You have to do it. Totally. Have to do it. Prayer, meditation, act as if. Fake it till you make it. If you don't believe in God, keep praying. You will.
Yeah.
You'll see evidence. You'll get a higher power because all of a sudden something will happen. You go, like we just spoke about, Max, higher power moment will happen and then you'll believe in it. Until then, fake it till you make it. Yeah. I want to see when you pray, fucking pray, So it's all of these things that I think you've got to be very staunch in that early doors. And I luckily had a really good sponsor. I had a really good friend who was in recovery, who was a friend of mine from years before. I met some really good people in that early stages. But it's not coincidental. It's because I wanted it as well. And because I was going around to a lot of meetings, I was sharing a lot. People were reacting to what I was sharing.
You were putting in action.
I was putting in action, exactly. And I think for me, when I got into steps really early. I done steps. My first round of steps 1 to 12, I was done within 2 years. I'd done it very quickly. I can't say the second and third was as quick, but like that. But the reality was, I needed to clear that shit out. You need to clear that shit out really quickly and really understand that actually these things that shame you and hold you with so much guilt and remorse is not you. I'm not blaming. Listen, you put in the actions, and I'm not saying that's your addict. There's a good in rehabs. That's your addict speaking. That's this. That's that. I do believe to some extent. Do you know what I mean? Like, me sat here, you sat here, chemically free. We're good people.
Yeah.
We're good people.
Yeah. We just recorded an episode on 4 and 5, and that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Good people.
And like you were saying about your mum in the beginning, she gave you so much love.
Good person.
She's a good person.
The best person. Yeah. Put a chemical in me. I'll cheat to get your Gucci wallet there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'll cheat to make sure you're out of the room so I can nick your computer screen. But that because I need a chemical. Do you know what I mean? It's not because of my traits or my mannerisms.
Yeah, ways and means.
Right now, do you know what I mean? Like, I want you two to feel good. I want you two to feel loved. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's my and when I went through that steps the first time, it was sort of identifying that, and there was a lot of that just writing it and not really understanding it and
totally
coming to understand it because. And again, there's a lot of that with recovery. There's so much literature out there. There's so much stuff. There's so much stuff as well that's left to your interpretation. And some people don't really. I'm one of them. Sometimes I'm like, no, give me fucking clear-cut directions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want something left to my interpretation. Yeah. Just hand it over to God. How? How do I hand it over to God? What's it? What? It's
too vague. Give me clear-cut direction.
So there was a lot of that, and there's a lot of battling with that sort of way, and just to sort of like on that point, my interpretation of handing it over to God, it's like I'm putting in the action, but the result is God's work. So I can't control people. I can't control people, places, and things. I can control how I hold myself. I can control my actions. I can control how I conduct myself today. I can control how I talk to you guys. How you reciprocate that, it's up to you. Do you know what I mean? That's God's will. That's your will. That's not my business, And a lot of that stuff, when you, I'm sure you're both in similar sort of lines of work of, like, when you get that email you don't really like and you want to react to it straight away and go, no, you can't. This is what's happening. Da, 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 da. It's like, sleep on that. Hand it over to God.
I normally ring Chris.
Do you know what I mean? Hand it over to God. Hand it over to a fellow. What do you do in this situation? So, in that sort of early stages for me was, quite intense step work, and we went through the work really quickly and
thoroughly though.
Very thoroughly, and sort of, come to had we sort of 1 to 9 is clearing the wreckage of your past, and 10 to 12 is clearing the wreckage of your present, and I really needed to sort of come to the position of someone, my sponsor, going, it's okay, it's okay. Your people of responsibility had let you down. You have found, you'd solace in something that made you feel better.
We were talking about that, weren't we? There's so much power in that, having someone, you're telling your deepest, darkest to someone, and they're just nodding, or putting that arm around you, Perry, and just saying, it's all right, it's not all your fault.
Yeah, a bit of nurturing.
And we can move on from this. And that moment for me, when I did my 4 or 5, was just, first time round was really beautiful, and I needed that. I needed to draw that line in the sand and say, right, that was my past, what does my future look like? And I had one of those moments, to Santa Chris, I really had one of those moments, especially on those 2 steps, where I just emptied that rucksack full of shit and just moved on with my life. And it was just so freeing. We spoke about it, Chris, didn't we? It's such a freeing process.
Yeah. I think I do, to answer your question, Chris, as well, I want to really emphasize that first couple of years, and especially if it is newcomers and people early on in their recovery, like, what have you got to lose? Like, if you've got to a point that you're turning to an NA meeting, rehab, AA meeting, whatever the case may be, what have you got to lose? Right? This is hard graft. I'm not disputing that. It's hard graft.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's the most beautiful thing I've ever done for myself by far, but it is also hard graft. And I just think you need to come into it with the idea that I am willing to do whatever it takes. And that's the only way. That's the only way I've seen people get this. When you half-heart it, you're out the door. You don't, you maybe not tomorrow, maybe not today. It's inevitable. You've got to come into this full heart, with open arms, with your all intentions that you're going to do all the suggestions. You're going to come to the meetings. You're going to share honestly. There's some people you're going to like in the meetings. There's some people you don't like. Call the people you don't like. Call the people you like. Stick with them. Share with them openly and honestly. Pray for the people you don't like.
Power in that.
What's the results of this, Per? How do you feel now? What's going on internally now? What's your life looking like now?
Now it's like night and day.
Yeah.
It's absolutely night and day for me. Like the sort of just on that sort of step process in that early stages for me was quite, I look at it and I think there's the life has just got greater and greater and greater, and it's got beyond points whereby, you sort of have limitations to yourself of like, if I can get to, oh man, I couldn't get to that though, that's not going to happen, and then I've smashed past that, and I've got to a different, and I'm like, wait, me?
Because at 5 years, I'm feeling so much more comfortable in my own skin. Are you at 10 years? Are you even further down that road? Yeah,
yeah, massively. I mean, I think
a massive thing for me. That
I think the fight, when I got to about 6-7 years clean, I sort of come away from recovery a little bit. If I'm honest with you, like maybe it's not even 6-7, maybe it was about 8 years, but it was over that COVID period.
Yeah.
So I didn't get on with Zoom. Yeah, it wasn't a bit of me. And then me, my sponsor, and a few of like my sponsorship brothers at the time, we would just do like a WhatsApp call, kind of check-in.
Yeah.
And that was my recovery at that point. And then I remember once it opened up, but it was only 15 people at a time, and you have to.
I remember.
And I was just like, I'm not.
People getting turned away.
And then there was, well, if it's a newcomer, you should give your seat up. Yeah. And I'm like,
I did that a few times. I left the meeting.
I'm 7 years clean, so obviously I've got to give up my seat and stuff. And I'm just like, I fucking need a meeting, but I don't. I need a meeting, but I don't want to do Zoom. You know, like so. I kind of. Has nothing to do with NA. It's all to do with me. Do you know what I mean? It's all in my head. But equally, in that same time, my career went from, like, I'm talking about these levels, went to a different level, like a level I never expected it to go. And I was like, oh my God, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm like putting all my sort of,
eggs in that basket.
That's my fulfillment. That's my higher power. This money that I'm now getting, this new money that I never thought would. How do I spend this money? And this you know, and nice, then it's this whole life sort of coming. And I went on that sort of trajectory for a little bit of period of time, and it was never coming away from my hand on heart. The principles of recovery is my life from day one to as we sit here today. So even in that period of time, get my hands and knees, meditate, pray to God. You know, I believe wholeheartedly in the steps in the process. May even do my daily inventory set like that. And even in that period of time, it was just I don't want to go to a meeting tonight. Do you know what I mean? My life is full. I'm going to go here, or I'm going to do that. But when I sort of come away from, especially in that sort of early first couple of year period, and sort of getting a sense of it's okay, like the best way I can liken that to, you know, when you get their moments, you're sort of walking down a road, all of a sudden you just have that bolt of memory from when you were 15 years old, and you said that to that one girl one time. Oh my God, fucking hell, that cut me.
We was just talking
all
about
the time.
It's like a lot of that sort of dissipated a little bit, because I've just come to realize that, you know, I was on chemicals. That's not who I am. This is the person I am now. And I sort of a lot of that period for me was getting to an acceptance, making amends, and one of the key ones for me was my mother at that time. Because I held a lot of resentment, because, you know, I felt like my future my life had panned out because of her. Because of getting into care, not knowing who my dad was, her passing away. A lot of all this shit was on her. You know, most important, to be honest with you, mostly was to do with not knowing who my dad was. That was a big thing, because
Did you ever find your dad?
I did. I'd done this step 9 amends with my mum, and this was a graveside amends, because obviously I couldn't. And I remember doing that at that time and thinking to myself, like, it took me a while to get to this point of writing this, by the way. I'd like sort of wrote it, cried, cried. And then got to the point of reading it at the graveside and reading it, cried. But I had this moment whereby, again, we sort of think it's, you know, divine intervention, higher power moment, whereby all of that, I had this overwhelming acceptance of, no, this is who I am. Okay, I didn't have these people in my life, but I'm good. Look at where I am.
It's okay.
I'm okay. I've got beautiful friends. I've got a beautiful grandmother. Like, I had this overwhelming acceptance. This was about 18 months clean at this time. And I sort of ran with this, because it was a beautiful part of my recovery. And I used to share that every time I got asked to do a main share. And this was at a Shoreditch church meeting. Sounds like I go to Shoreditch church all the time, doesn't it? But it was at the Shoreditch church meeting on a Sunday. And after this meeting, this woman's come up to me and said, "Oh, beautiful share. Your mum would be really proud of you. Thank you very much." She said, "Was your mum's name called Karen by any chance?" I was like, "Yeah, how do you know?" And she gasps and going, "I used to babysit you when you was a baby."
Bruh.
It's like, "You kidding me?" She said, "Do you mind if we go for a coffee?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So she's we're catching up. She's telling me stories about how she met my mum. They had met in rehab at the time.
Okay.
So my mum had met her in rehab. Her idea of recovery was to have me. This woman was like, no, I'm going to do meetings and, you know.
Yeah.
So, hey, listen, I'm here. So let's, you know.
Yeah.
And she said, look, I've got something to tell you. I don't really know how to come out of it, but I know who your dad is. And I said, fucking hell. All right.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'd never, this remotely.
Never looked.
I looked all the time, Chris, but no one had a Scooby.
Right. Oh, okay.
No one had an absolute Scooby. All we had, right?
And you bumped into someone at a meeting.
That
had the piece of the puzzle you was missing.
All we had at this time was my grandma had been told by my mum while she was, once upon a time, had told her that his name was Mickey.
Right.
No further name than that, right? So this woman said this to me, and my first thought was like, ask her what his name is. And I said, what's his name? She went, Mickey such and such. I went,
yeah.
We might be on to saying it. Fuck yeah, you know. She said, listen, like I don't know him personally. I don't have his number, don't have his details. But he met your mother in recovery back in South London. Obviously, I was 25 at the time, 25 years ago. If you know anyone that's, that clean or been around for that long, that was from South London, they may know him. I'm like, I can't fucking know anyone like that, So I've left this woman, my mind's racing, and I'm just trying to think, who can I call that might know this? So one of the first person I ever met, was this boy, George, from Elephant and Castle at this young person's meeting I was referring to. And I didn't know really much about him. He was younger than me, I believe, at the time. But he was from Elephant and Castle. I thought, let's fucking ask. I think his dad might be in recovery. I'm not sure.
Right.
Called up this boy, George, and said, hello, mate, you're okay? He said, yeah. I said, can you do me a favour? Can you ask your dad if he knows who Mickey such and such is? He said, well, I can, but I know who he is.
Oh, fucking hell.
I said, how do you know who he is? He
This
said,
is the first person you've called?
First person I've called, Chris. First person I've called. He said, well, I can ask him, but I know who he is. I said, how do you know who he is? He said, he's my godfather.
Oh, wow.
He said, why do you want to know? I said, well, I've just been told he might be my dad, so it might be worth having a chat with him,
Yeah.
So anyway, we eventually he gets my number and he calls me on my birthday of all days. On my fucking birthday. He doesn't know it's my birthday, right? So he calls me up and he's like, hey, it's Mickey, I've heard you've been trying to get hold of me. I'm like, yeah, I told you might be my dad, so I thought it might be worth having a chat, So we're both sort of a bit puzzled, trying to put the pieces together, trying to realise if there is something there. And I remember there was this one point where I just sort of had this sort of hang about, like, I felt like there was a bit of, the best way to put it was, I hold my mum in such high esteem, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, she's the pinnacle of a person. And when there's a person that's saying, oh, I don't know if I remember her, who's meant to have slept with her.
Gets you back up a bit, eh?
Mate.
Yeah.
I turned around to him, I was like, listen, mate, if you're my old man, you don't want fuck all to do with me, you tell me now and just fuck off. Don't go around trying to pretend you don't know who my mum is. And he's fought back with venom as well. And he's like, listen, if I'm your dad, I want to be part of your life. I'm just trying to piece the puzzles together. I should have known there with our spite, the pair of us.
Is there a resemblance, physical?
Sorry?
Is there a physical resemblance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's a lot older. He's like he's in his 70s, so like you know, it's sort of you're looking at each other, and I don't think you can spot it like between the two of us. But there was younger photos that I'd seen, and I was like, that's me in a grainy photo. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was so I'm definitely his. I definitely look like him more than my mum, and we sort of then we sort of had this chat, and then we said, look, let's meet up, and let's have a mumble, and we met up over in Waterloo. Sort of looking, as I mentioned, we're sort of looking at each other. Do I look like you? Do you look like me? And we got on like a house on fire really well. He's quite an emotional guy, very much like me. And we then come to this decision. We said, right, let's get a paternity test done. So we had we booked in this paternity test in this place in Vauxhall. We met up again, And I remember just as we was about to walk in, he's turned around to me and went, listen, he said, if I'm your dad, I want to be a big part of your life as much as you'll let me. But if I'm not, I want to be your best mate.
Nice.
And I just thought, what the fuck, you know,
Nice thing to say.
sort of the stature of the man, right? And so we had this test done. You know, obviously I'm sat by the phone for the next week waiting for the results to come on through.
Yeah.
And then this woman calls and she's like, I'm from such and such, you know, we've got your test results in for your paternity test. And I'm sat there and I'm thinking, I said, what's the result? She went, he's your dad. I was like, what? She said, I could have told you that as soon as you walked in, your mannerisms are exactly the same. I was like, oh my fucking God. And I remember I was working in an office in Shoreditch at the time, and everyone sort of knew what was going on. And I took, you know, I sort of walked in, I was like, he's my dad. Everyone's like cheering. It was like, and the boss had gone, go for a walk. Just go for a walk. Let it sink in. Just go for a walk. He's not one of us, but a very spiritual guy. And he was just like, look, go for a walk. And I remember sort of walking up like sort of Red Church Street in Shoreditch and just thinking to myself, just sort of like, I had this sort of completion.
Yeah.
I sort of now know whether this relationship with me and my dad was going to go anywhere, I don't know, but I had this completion of like, I know where I'm from. I know both parts now. Do you know what I mean? I know it all.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this feeling of less than, this, you know, I know it all. And we'd spoke that day, and then it was like, oh, you're my boy. Yeah, you're my dad. And to sort of like, long story short of it all, you know, this is 8 years ago now. And I can sit here, lads, and say hand on heart, he's my best mate. He's my best mate. We've had ups and downs with it, but he's my best mate. And, you know, this is, as you pointed out there, Chris, you know, it was like, if it weren't me getting clean, working a step 9, going to that meeting to share, that woman hearing my story, coming up to me and telling me.
Mad.
I met my dad because of recovery, because I got clean.
Yeah, beautiful.
You know, and then and I sort of refer to higher power moments. Now, not everyone's higher power moment's going to be as, you know, as definitive as that, but even that, like, how can I go back and use?
No.
Of course.
How could I? And in answer to sort of your question earlier about, you know, what's life like now, and how I feel as a person nowadays, like, I feel the longer I've been in recovery, the more I need this.
Yeah.
Because my defects of character can come up quite quickly. You know, I was talking to someone just before I come here, and, you know, the reason I say that is because I'm such more of a sensitive soul nowadays, because I'm so acutely aware of this stuff more. You know, like, my lifestyle isn't wrapped around pubs, clubs, cheating, stealing, dealing and using, and where like a lot of that shit is acceptable. My lifestyle now is meditation, helping men, having lunch at Waitrose, and, you know, worrying about how many times I'm training a week, you know. So that part of me where I say I need this more now than ever is because I'm so closer to this more now than ever. So I need to be clean-hearted. Like, I just need it because it's at my core. So for me, like, I need to be there speaking to men every day, trying to help each other, pray, meditate, ice baths, gym, holistic stuff for my own nature, so I am clean-hearted. Being there for my family, being that person, being the man that I dreamt I would be, and that's what's becoming a reality. I have achieved a lot of things through my career. I've achieved a lot of things financially. I've achieved a lot of things in terms of material items. And I had to do that to go, that's not the root of it all. So anyone that, you know, turns around and go, oh, it's not the root of it all, still go and do it. Like, you have to do it, because I can't tell you. You still got to go and have that nice things and go, actually, that's not the root of it all. It's nice to have nice things, but I know at the end of the day, the core of happiness now is being there and being selfless and helping other people, and ultimately just trying to do the next right thing.
Yeah, man.
You know.
Amen.
I mean, I think we're going to end it there, mate, because that was brilliant. Been such a great guest.
Oh, thank you for
really
inviting me.
Good to hear your story. That stuff for your dad's fucking unbelievable. You know what I mean? And like we were saying, how could you even deny the existence of like a higher power working in your life? All that stuff would not have come to fruition. I was thinking back, like, each step that had to happen for that to happen.
Yeah,
that's
you know
what
what I mean.
Right?
It's just like it's too much to ignore. So look, mate, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting
Max,
me, guys.
Once again, thanks for being my co-host, mate, and getting this done because it started to help people. Perry, there was a guy in that meeting yesterday that has come through listening to this podcast. You know what I mean? And I know people are going to get a lot out of what you shared. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next time.